Are we ready? I'm not really ready. By the way, we've changed today to Friday. So for anybody that wanted an early weekend, we put a request in to change the day of the week. So I'm going to show you I want to kind of go through this PowerPoint with you real quick, and then I'll take you through the resources that we put up, which we hope people will all read through. So let me start here. All right, hopefully everybody can see this now. This is our new logo. It looks similar to a lot of agency logos. That's just a joke, folks. Okay, so we do have a lot of just agency-wide resources for you, and then there's some specific to special education services. There's some important reminders, and then we actually haven't done our joint statement yet, so we'll put that in later. The agency-wide resources, we want everybody, and I'm thinking you probably are already looking at this. And Christa, just give me a thumbs up if you actually see my screen.
You're good.
Okay. And then some frequently asked questions that's continually updated. The Office of Instruction has a lot of supports, and then child nutrition has obviously been working around the clock, getting a lot of waivers to make sure that all of our kids can eat. On our webpage, so if you just go to our homepage, that's where we have all of our resources. We're trying to limit how many clicks you need to get around this stuff. The two bigger documents are our distance learning guidance and then our IDA FAQ that we sent out over last weekend. So I want to share a couple things that, and I know that a lot of you have probably, I don't know how many people are in the chat right now, but have already been on calls with us. So some of this information may not be new to you. If you do have some questions, I'll try to answer them. I don't know where the chat box is right now. I can't see, but maybe Christa can. So we need to think about what's changed and what hasn't changed. What's changed is we don't have quite the same resources that we previously had for the earlier in the year, and that the gen ed environment is now distance learning. And that's how we're looking at IEPs and services to students with disabilities. How are we going to provide services as comparable to their IEP as possible through a distance learning model? And whichever distance learning model your school chooses to use, or your district, or your individual teachers. We're doing this because the safety and well-being of our students, family, and staff is our top priority. We do need to focus on equity for our most vulnerable students, and really especially key during this time is maintaining connections between school staffs and students and families. I think a lot of families right now are probably not as interested in education as a whole as they are in their own, their own students' safety and everyone's well-being. Some key things about distance learning: it's not always online learning. There are different local contexts. We understand that there are different contexts. We understand that not everyone has a laptop or access to virtual learning. We understand that not all parents have access to a phone or email or any of that. We need to make sure, though, that we're making individualized decisions about these services for students. We can deliver special education services. That's something laid out in the Office of Special Education Program and U.S. Department of Ed's supplemental guidance on these issues. We need to keep students at the center, design learning for equity and access, and assess student learning. We've had a lot of questions about progress reporting and all that. As you know, progress reporting is determined on an individual basis. And we want to make sure is during this time, where do we start? And then after we provided as meaningful of an education as we can, how do we need to follow up after all of this? Do we need to think about additional supports and services that our students need? So we're going to need to do some progress tracking. On the supplemental fact sheet that I hope you've read and is on our webpage, it made it clear that all students must be receiving an education. Ensuring compliance with the IDA should not prevent any school from offering educational programs through distance instruction. And districts must provide FAPE while protecting the health and safety of students, educators, and service providers. We know that services are going to be provided differently than when schools are fully operational. We also know that we do have the ability to provide some accommodations and services remotely, and that, again, communicating with families is the key to ensuring successful distance learning. So before I show you the IDA FAQ, let me see where I am here. Here's some known issues that we have that you all know as well. But I also want to share that as we're thinking about all this and providing FAPE, we need to all remain calm. We need to make sure we're thinking about safety as much as possible. Remember that the IDA is still in place, still providing a FAPE. Communication is essential. Document what you think you need to document. Make sure everyone is on board or is understanding what's happening. There are exceptional circumstances. This whole time period for the entire country is rife with exceptional circumstances. Compliance under the IDA is largely a function of individualization. You need to remember, again, I've said this before, but the gen ed environment for students in Oklahoma starting next Monday is distance learning. It's going to look different. We can't expect our teachers to suddenly, be, these wonderful educators in a virtual environment if they've never gotten the opportunity to do that without training and resources and guidance. But what we do know is that for special education teachers, they are very good at working within multiple different contexts and thinking about various ways to provide education to their students. That's what they do on a continual basis. Our special education teachers are not the ones that are always just teaching from a book. They are innovative. They're used to thinking about different ways to provide education to their students. So I'm going to exit out of this screen real quick. I'm going to share. My other screen here. Okay, so on our homepage, the special education homepage, this is where we have all of our guidance documents listed. So we're sending out a listserv today about the, which I was supposed to do already, but I didn't have time. We've updated the distance learning guidance, just a look of it, okay? Also the IDA FAQ. We have the distance learning guidance. This is an online module. There's a compilation of online resources here. There's some OAP learning resources. New today is Arkansas has made a document that we felt was worth sharing. This is supports for students with significant cognitive disabilities. And hopefully everyone can still see my screen right now. I lost some things. Then we have assistive technology. Able Text created an FAQ here. AbleTech is still available for questions. You can still borrow devices. And then we have our virtual IEP meeting checklist, which we sent out previously. The related services guidance is now up. and available to you. We just had a related services phone call, which I hope some of you attended. There were about 900 people on the call. UCO's Behavior Central has pushed out a lot of videos designed to help parents and helping to manage their behavior at home. They've made 6 videos so far. I think they're going to make a total of 13 or 14. Then we have this form is optional. People kept emailing saying, where's that state mandated student service tracking document? It's not state mandated. It's an optional form for you, which is why we have a Word version that you could edit. And then I just made it into a fillable PDF if you want to use it as is. And then we have, so on this form, the idea behind this form is just for IP teams to kind of keep track of what's happened during this time. So you don't have to use it, but it could be useful for your teachers just to keep track of all the changes that are happening and what they're doing for their individual students. And again, you can make your own form. This is a parent consent for the release of confidential information in group e-learning and teletherapy. And we just put this together today. This is a sample document. If you want, though, you could, of course, highlight it and copy it onto something if you wanted to. We have some district shared resources here that I'm not sure is that populated right now. Down here, we have some information for parents. We had some program specialists working on a new parent guidance document that hopefully they'll be done with in the near future. This was the original document. It's really just around it was specific to the 2-week closure period. These are infographics on the USD guidance that I think is helpful to parents, but also very helpful to educators. And then we have the Oklahoma Parents Center had made some tips for virtual meetings, which I think is helpful, that you could give to parents if you'd like. And they've been sending it out to their parents just to kind of give parents an idea of what the meeting will look like, what they need to do for it, that kind of thing. I'm going to come back to this. The dispute resolution guidance we put out is essentially stating that, no one is at our office right now, and there aren't a lot of people in school buildings. So some of these timelines are going to be, well, the actual timelines are not going to be different, but when we get the complaint, that's when we'll open it. And then IP facilitations, we have some information on here, mediations and due process hearings. So you might want to read over that. This is some other information we put up that we felt would be useful to you, especially from NASP, Virtual Service Delivery in Response to COVID-19 Disruptions. And this is just all information from that the USD has sent out, more specifically regarding students with disabilities. And all our upcoming trainings, as you might guess, are subject to change, being changed, rescheduled, canceled, or moved to an online format. We will be submitting some information out about our monitoring probably next week. I never finished this here because we didn't make a decision on it. But we'll be looking at that, of course, and notifying any districts that are like in the middle of a monitoring activity. Obviously, if you need more time on things, we will give you more time on things because we understand also what you're going through. So now I'm going to pull up the FAQ. And again, it's the same thing that we had sent out before. It's just updated to look prettier. And I'm trying to right now see the chat box. There it is. Someone's asking about the related service provider session. Yeah, we recorded that session. We'll take your questions in the chat box and try to answer them as much as possible during this, and then we'll just follow up with a separate document afterwards, answering any other questions that we didn't get to. So this is really important. There's no identified method or detailed guidance to adequately and equitably meet the needs of all students during this pandemic. You know, and I'm going to just keep repeating this. It's really important to be in contact with parents. Make sure you're documenting everything. Make sure you're making a good faith effort to provide quality services. And we know that's difficult. If you're, you know, I don't want people to be extremely afraid of getting a complaint or anything like that, because, you know, in the end, and you've heard, most of you have heard me say this, there's not much we can do except to tell you to do better during the next global pandemic, which hopefully will not happen. So what we want people to do is try their best at providing what they think will be a meaningful education for these students during this 4 to 5 week period. I'm going to skip a few of these questions because I think we all know the answers to them, but yes, special education and related services are still required. This form again is down here. It is again labeled optional. So options for how districts provide a FAPE to students with disabilities when the school goes to a distance learning platform for all students. We need to the greatest extent possible provide the student with services as required by their IEP. But we may need to make changes to some of those. They may be made through an IEP amendment. We're not requiring that everyone amends their IEP. There's 116,000 IEPs in the state, and you don't have time to amend every single one of your IEPs. What you want to do first is consider how the current accommodations and modifications are provided in a physical classroom setting and what that might look like in a virtual setting. Someone's asking if we should record Zoom sessions with students. I would say no, do not do that. Is a district required to provide related services when school goes distance learning? When a school, this is a terribly worded question, I guess, but yes, whichever distance learning platform is used, you should provide services through there. Someone's asking us if, when we make changes to this document, we haven't actually made any changes yet to, but when we do, we will note that in some way on the document and let you know when it is. But it hasn't been changed since we put it up, again, except for just the aesthetic. Okay, so how is districts provide FAPE to high-needs students who cannot participate in a distance learning environment? We know that not every student is a good candidate for distance learning services. This is why most students go to school in person, because we understand that. What we do have to consider is the complexity of the student's condition, context and environment in which the student interacts, how comfortable they are with using technology, the nature and complexity of the service and or intervention required or being asked of by the school. You know, in the end, if a service cannot be provided in a way that you think as the IEP team it should be, or that they're not able to get that service, that's when we're going to have to think about, after all of this, what additional services and supports are we going to need to provide to the student to make sure that they can make adequate progress in the Gen Ed curriculum. I probably shouldn't get sidetracked by the chat box, but I do. Someone's asking if a student moves in from out of state and enrolls, yes, you should enroll them and provide them distance learning, although hopefully there's not a lot of people moving states. How should students with disabilities, including students in special class programs, medically fragile students, students with one-to-one paraprofessionals, and students receiving related services be accommodated? That's a good question, and it's going to be up to districts. It's going to be in consultation with parents. It's going to be in consultation with your own staff. We can't obviously also put our staff in situations where we don't feel like they're safe or where they don't have the knowledge and skills to be successful. So again, we may need to consider after this time any compensatory services when students return, adjust IEPs accordingly, and this should be done on a case-by-case basis. And I might have Christa jump in here, but we will need to review students' annual goals and objectives and determine if any changes need to be made. We'll need to review how the progress for meeting the annual goals is measured. You might hear the vacuum in the background here, and my child crying, sorry. The IEP team, including the parent, may determine it is best to focus on specific IEP goals during the time frame the students receiving special ed related services. What we're trying to say here is you may not be able to adequately measure all the goals in a way that you normally would. You're going to need to think about, is there a comparable way we can measure a goal? Are there some goals we should focus more heavily on during this time? So we also have to remember, for the majority of our students, we're talking about 4 to 5 weeks. And again, the parent of a student with disability in the district may agree not to convene an IEP meeting for the purposes of making these changes, and instead develop a written document to amend or modify the student's current IEP that you would then upload, include as a part of the IEP. And there's the same answer here on IEP amendments. You do have flexibility in the process required to amend an individual student's existing IEP during the closure of normal school operations. Someone's asking us about progress reports. Do you want us to document progress somehow? Yes, in the same way that you've always documented progress. Someone's asking about extended standards to create lessons for students with significant cognitive disabilities. I would encourage you to go look at our OAP resources page. And also there is a, on DLM itself, you can find the extended academic standards. But on the OAP resources page, you'll find some family resources for parents and teachers, some resources we found. And then again, what I showed from Arkansas that I think is very helpful. And there is a consent form someone's asking. We talked about the related services Zoom, and it is on our webpage right here. Here's the big idea between holding meetings. You are going to need to try to have a meeting. Obviously, if you can't hold a meeting, you can't hold a meeting. But what we're saying is you need to make every effort to, schedule those at a mutually agreed upon time, hold them virtually or by phone conferences. If you can't, you need to document all of these attempts you're doing. All the team members should be present. And we expect that people will work collaboratively. So, phone conferences, virtual meetings have always been an option for districts for, I'm not sure when exactly it's put in the IDA, but a long time. We had tried to think about this question a long time ago. Not a long time. It feels like a long time ago, like 2 weeks ago. Yes, thank you, Shannon. The Arkansas document is a great resource. I'm very happy they shared that. So placement. We don't believe an amendment to the IP is always necessary. It's probably not necessary in most cases because everyone's environment is changing. So the closure to normal school operations doesn't automatically necessitate a change of placement for all students. But we will need to review IEPs, and if you do think you need to change something on the IEP, you should. The service types we didn't change, and the reasoning behind that, we didn't add like virtual delivery or something like that. for the same reason that in virtual schools, we don't have a separate service type. Direct instruction will look different in a virtual environment, but that's not to say that it is not still direct instruction. Evaluations, I think a lot of people have already been asking about this. You're probably already aware, but let me say this real quick. The Council for Exceptional Children, the National Association of State Directors of Special Education has been working with people in the field across the country to figure out, what are some waivers that would really benefit us? And some of those are around timelines. One reason is that we don't want to have to go back and say districts didn't meet their initial evaluation timelines when we are well aware of the reason why those timelines weren't met. And so a lot of the ask to the Office of Special Education Programs is that once, if we're not able to meet timelines during this time period, that once normal school operations resume, everyone would have 45 school days to complete any of those things. But the big idea here is that, if you're doing an initial evaluation and you need to do an assessment that requires it to be in person, you're just not going to be able to do that. If you need that specific evaluation in order to make an eligibility decision, you will not be able to make an eligibility decision. But that does not mean that schools need to, that you're not able to provide anything to the student. We can still provide accommodations and interventions to these students. And you would likely have, other data that would let you know what accommodations or interventions might be helpful for the student in the meantime. And so there's not a good way around that. And if you haven't been on calls before, this is one of the things this is in the IDEA. So the Office of Special Education Programs and state education agencies won't actually be outside of, they don't have the authority to change any of these timelines. That's why we're just trying to do it this way and noting any extreme circumstances, which obviously there are a lot of extreme circumstances. And same thing for reevaluations. For home instruction, it's the same thing again. We're gonna need to think about, can some services be provided that way? If they can't, we won't be able to provide them. And we need to think, what if any compensatory services need to be offered when school resumes? There will be a graduation FAQ coming out, I'm hoping soon, agency-wide. Districts and IEP teams should exercise flexibility to ensure students with disabilities who are on track to graduate still graduate. We don't want students to be negatively impacted by this. They didn't do anything. We want to make sure that we're as flexible as possible when it comes to graduation and supporting our students. It's dependent on when everyone can get back to normal. They might not have the opportunity as well to attend school in the summer. And then again, ending services is the same. There's still a summary performance that needs to be done. There doesn't have to be a meeting for that. And I spoke to this earlier, but for ESY is what I was talking about earlier. An extended closure of normal school operations may necessitate a reconsideration of ESY services. And ESY is still on, okay? I've heard some districts say, we're not doing ESY. You are doing ESY. It's going to look different, but we don't want any district making a blanket statement anytime about ESY. Public agency cannot unilaterally limit the type, amount, or duration of ESY services. And the compensatory ed. And I know, and across states, other state directors I talk to also have a problem with this language because districts obviously aren't doing something wrong. They are just literally unable to provide some of the services, or they may be unable to provide those. So, we like to think of it as once school resumes, we really need to be thinking about how much progress a student continued to make through the distance learning platform, and what, if any, additional services and supports students are going to need in the future. I'm just going to look at the chat box here real quick. Yeah, you should have adjusted your EdPlan calendars already. So we've sent information out about that on our listserv for the school closure period. But starting Monday, or whenever your district starts back up by Monday, those are school days. Someone's asking about a plan of improvement for the timeline issue. I'm guessing you mean in terms of our general supervision and monitoring, but no, I mean, I think we're going to try to work that out. That's what I was saying. Since we already know what this issue is, the only times that we're going to have a real issue, okay, is if a parent contacts us, files a complaint or something like that, that their district was never in touch with them. They were never provided anything, which is why you will need to have documentation that, yes, you have, been attempting to contact parents, you've been making a good faith effort. But if there's no documentation, a parent says, we never heard from our district, we never got a phone call, we never got an email, then that would obviously be problematic, as it would outside of this current situation. Someone's asking, is it safe to say that ESY will use the distance learning platform? Yes, that's pretty safe to say. Claudia, you're asking how will the automated transfer of records be affected in that plan? Assuming if automated transfers won't occur. Claudia, you should know that like every year, it'll be a journey, okay? When we get back to school, automated transfer of records is always an exciting time. We will do our best to make sure that it is as smooth as possible. I hope it is every year. Every year we try to fix it to make it better. Every year it does get better, actually. If you have a parent that refuses, oh yes, now, Claudia. Yes. Well, I just lost track of these questions. Oh, if a parent refuses a service, that's fine. I might have already said this because I've been in so many phone calls, but some parents may feel overwhelmed if they have several kids who are receiving several related services. So just think you as a person would also have a difficult time while you're doing a job, while you all especially are doing a job, and your teachers, to be able to negotiate all of that happening around you. So we need to be cognizant of all of those family and home life issues. And if a parent refuses a related service, you would document that like you would anything else. Yes, Shauna, everyone can transfer to Loftin. We'll work on that. We'll do an automated transfer to Loftin. Layla, yeah, you can use, for Sooner Start transitions, same idea. You can use any of the information available from Sooner Start and progress as much as you can. I'm just trying to look back through the chat to see if I missed something here. think if you look through our resources, you'll find most of the answers to your questions. We do have, actually like I said, the video, let's see if it was published yet. There it is. Our friends at PCG created this for us, Babette and Jill. And they actually, when they did this, they couldn't get the, there's supposed to be a Zoom screen up here, but where you see that it says share your screen, but they talk you through it and walk you through how to actually sign a document. Everyone has very poor penmanship for electronic signatures. Just do your best. But most of the resources are here. Like I was saying, I think someone might have missed this. Our OAC resources are here. We're trying to get, DLM did not like the idea of using an instructional tools interface. Just, it's technically more difficult than we were thinking. But they might release some additional testlets that you could work with parents on. DLM, remember, is canceled. If you had a student that did take it and finished, we're working on at least providing a learning profile, not like a score report, but a learning profile based on what they did do during that time. Someone's asking if you had a parent consent for reevaluation with additional data done before spring break, can we do a written notice and continue the current placement? Yeah, everyone should continue everything really, unless they have good information to do otherwise, like any other necessary evaluations. It's really important for us not to change a good IEP during this time, just because of this. You know, we worked hard on making all these IEPs as good as possible before. We don't need to suddenly change everything. And we do need to operate a little optimistically that we'll be returning to normal at some point. The signing video is, I think everybody can see my screen right here. Digital signatures and IEP meetings how-to video. Shauna, are you asking this question about document the late initial evaluations? No, Shannon. Yeah, we will obviously try to take that into consideration for DDPs. We can't change the way we calculate it when we send it to the feds, but obviously we will take that in consideration when we're making determinations. And that's what I'm saying. Hopefully there will be some kind of timeline waiver anyway coming down from the feds. And if you do have a lot of late ones, we'll just say that it was Shauna Keene's district that did it and put it on her DDP instead. Okay, so that's really all I have to share. I'm just hoping that everyone kind of looks to those resources. I just want to stress again, you know, don't not do something. Don't freeze yourself from any kind of action because you're so insanely worried about compliance. You know, let your teachers work with their parents and students and their IEP teams and think outside the box about how they will provide as meaningful an education as possible. Make sure what you're doing is lined up with what your district is doing in general, because we are charged with providing an equal educational opportunity to all of our students. And, you know, I think it's a little easy right now for teachers to get overwhelmed by all of the information that they can find. You're probably getting overwhelmed from vendors contacting you. I know I am. I'm not technically because I just delete their emails, but it's all kind of a lot of information at once. So take it one step at a time. You know, again, document what you need to document, move forward as much as you can on certain issues. Know that there will be exceptional circumstances. And, you know, there's no IEP jail currently. It's closed for now. That's just a joke. We don't have that plan jail or IEP jail. Dean, you should document this meeting on a written notice, yes. The Parent Connect, the Ed Plan Connect, I call it the wrong thing all the time, but someone's asking, where can we find the email in Ed Plan? Oh, the Parent Connect does not retrieve emails from anywhere. That's on purpose because we had some troubles last fall, if you remember. That people will have to put in their own email addresses. We determined finally that, you know, the teacher is the one who is positive what the email address is versus your student information system. So you can use EdPlan Connect, just make sure your teachers know to check to make sure that the email address is correct in the system. And then you could send documents to parents that way. Someone's asking about progress reports. Jose, thank you. Yes. Yeah, you probably should use a different form. You don't want to use a form that would invalidate what you were doing before, obviously. But you're going to want to think about, for whichever way you're doing it now, is the way you're saying you're going to measure that progress going to still work in the virtual environment? It may not. And if it doesn't, and you can't find something, you know, comparable, you could start over with that, tracking that progress from that point forward and noting that, you know, we've changed the way that we're measuring progress on this goal right now. Daniel, yes, there is a way to have EdPlan send documents to parents through Parent Connect.
Hey, I wanted to add just something real quick too. We do get a lot of questions right now about, can we do this? I had an email earlier today about, this is what we've decided to do for all of our students. Do I just need to send a written notice to the parents? Guys, don't overlook the importance of collaboration and communication right now with your parents, because I think that's going to be a real critical piece of this. Call them up. I mean, like we said, you don't have to have an IEP meeting for every student, of course, but call the parent up. They probably have some anxiety about this also. I think that's going to be as important as the compliance piece to this right now, because we want to make sure parents are on board and understand. So like with Jose's question about progress monitoring, yes, that's fine. Just make sure that we're reaching out to the parents and they're informed and we're addressing any concerns that they have also. So just don't leave out that communication. If you have not, as a director, talk to your teachers about making some type of contact, whether it's email, phone, a meeting, you know, with all parents, just to kind of touch base with them, make sure that you do that. So, sorry, Todd, I'm gonna jump in just real quick.
Consent for release. I keep freezing on your screen. Actually, I've just moved real slow. The consent for release, where did it go here? Okay, well, let me get back to it.
While you're looking for that, I was just going to address this. Do document in Parent Connect, parent contacts, your conversations. But anything that you've changed or how you've decided to provide this distance learning, I would, you know, if it's major changes or edits, I would do some type of follow-up with written notice.
Yeah, so the consent for release, I mean, I think you should use something similar. We of necessity kind of have to put sample on it, and you can make your own version Christa, can they see my screen now? Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so this is the parent consent for release. I mean, I would use it. I mean, I kind of don't, I'm always back and forth on this kind of thing. You're not exactly, when you're in a classroom, you're not exactly handing out, tangible educational records to all your students, because that's a FERPA violation. And so the same thing when you're doing virtual learning in a small group, you as teachers shouldn't really be sharing that kind of information regardless. But if you want to just kind of feel better and protect yourself about that, this is a document that you could use. Where did my... Okay, I'm just going to look at the chat real quick. Okay, so someone's asking, do you have to do consent for every student doing teleservices? I think the way that we provide education, however it's stated in the IEP, like direct instruction, I think we need to inform parents about how they're receiving instruction. I think we definitely need to do it if they've never, for group therapy, if they have never been in a group therapy, teletherapy situation. Yeah. The consent is a PDF to download, yes. The Arkansas information, you guys are really making me work through all my screens here. I keep losing things. There we go, screen 2. Is on the, so right here. So all of our distance learning resources are here. Down here is more kind of FAQ things. And then, by the way, we will have some information on finance and data reporting, hopefully by next week. But the Arkansas document I talked about is here on OAP Learning Resources. Right here, supports for students with cognitive disabilities. And again, these are some that we had pulled together, and these are some other ones that DLM has made previously. Tar Heel Reader is really a great option that a lot of your teachers are going to be familiar with anyway. And these are those Arkansas resources, which I think are great. Someone's asking about, maybe I'll go in order. If you've already gotten consent for testing, yeah, you need to, again, continue as much as you possibly can outside of your innate inability to do evaluations that require them to be done in person. So move forward like you would, whatever you can't do, however you can't move forward, make sure the parent is informed about that. And I would do a written notice. If the child receives direct instruction services, what's our recommendation on how often? We really can't provide that recommendation. You should look at the, I think I'm still sharing my screen. So on here, the distance learning resources, these are the agency-wide ones. They have, maybe I myself should go to the table of contents so I can see. No, that wasn't helpful. I should have downloaded it as a document. Oh my gosh. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. They put together some sample schedule for instructional learning by age. Things like that you could look through. Someone's asking about on a reeval where new data is needed, what do we do? You need to do as much as you possibly can. And look at the FAQ specifically where we talk about that. And again, Christa, when is the call for school psychologists?
It is tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yes, and I don't have the time right off, but it's tomorrow. So
Now, those are open to the public. We only sent an invite to this meeting to specific directors. See, people already know, besides
tomorrow
us.
Too. Yeah. 2:30. Yes, it's tomorrow at 2:30.
Yeah, but there's a link to it. We'll probably send it out on the listserv again today. After we get off here, I'm going to go put the listserv together. So we'll make sure to include the link to that. All right. Even if there are more questions, it's almost 4:30. So I'll let you get home and look at our resources. And if there are some questions, we'll look through the chat, see if there's some questions we didn't answer and respond to those. Okay. All right. I appreciate everyone's hard work. We know that you're trying as much as possible to do what you need to be doing. So if you want to ask us questions and call us, most of you have my phone number, but then also email us. And if you want to go through a specific IEP or service or anything like that, we'd love to talk through that with you or anything like that. So we're here to help you. I think that, besides finance and data and reporting, we're kind of back off on providing so much guidance and let just people digest what we currently have. And we will, and if you have resources that you want to share from your district for us to share out to other people, this is how I got the Arkansas document, right? Because all the state directors are sharing everything we make. So just let me know, email that to me and we can post it up for other people. Yeah, I think everybody's doing a great job so far, given the insane constraints that we have going on right now. So, but I'm pretty positive that everyone is making a good faith effort. I didn't go through the rest of the PowerPoint. That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. We won't do that. All right, well, thank you guys. And we'll see you, probably tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday. Everyone take it easy. Yes, all questions should go to Claudia Beckner and Loftin. I'll send you her email.